Joining me now, Minot area State Representative Dan Ruby. Dan, welcome to the program.
Yeah, hi, Rob.
First of all, let me ask: Are you folks safe? Your family, you guys okay?
Yeah, I guess where I live and where my shop is located for our business, we're northwest of Minot or northeast of Burlington, so we're kind of up away from the river. I do have a couple of sons that just bought some houses between Minot and Burlington, and my parents are also kind of in an evacuation zone, so we've been kind of helping them move as well.
Yeah, it's certainly been a scramble. One question I wanted to ask you is, obviously we've seen this flooding and it just keeps coming and coming, and it seems like every time we think we've got it beat for the year, we get more of it. And I'm actually watching right now video on my screen here of them building a dike across a gas station parking lot, Harley's, in down in the valley in Minot. I guess what would that be? That would probably be northwest Minot. Just shocking to see these big earthen walls appear across our streets in town. But one question I wanted to ask, I saw it was reported, obviously you're a state legislator. When we have an emergency like this in the Minot area or the Bismarck area, does the state have, I know the state has funds available to sort of kick in and help pay for some of what's going on. Can you maybe give us some details about that?
Well, certainly there's emergency funds that could be tapped into. Most of the expense, of course, is going to be through the Guard, the National Guard, and their efforts, and certainly they would be able to approach the budget section for some additional funds for their efforts, and I'm sure for other state facilities and agencies that are affected, they would be able to do that as well. Other than that, I think a lot of it is pretty much for the local areas and whatever the state has that they could kick in some extra money to assist the political subdivisions with their efforts. I'm sure those are going to be looked at and accessed if possible.
Obviously, we've got a special session already scheduled coming up here for November.
Yep.
With for redistricting and some things like that. And I know already on the agenda was addressing some of these additional costs from flooding. If things keep going the way they are, would there be any possibility or would there be a need for the legislature to meet in a special session?
Well, there could be if the costs are so astronomical that both the major affected areas, I guess, the Bismarck, Mandan area, and now the Minot areas and outlying areas that the Souris River is touching, and as well as what Fargo and Grand Forks dealt with. Theirs luckily wasn't as bad in the past, but certainly there's always the ability for the legislature to appropriate some money for special circumstances like this, and that's something that could be looked at. Whether it would need to be addressed immediately, because we're still fighting it and it's going to be a while. I don't know that we're going to know what our true costs are for quite a while, because it's going to, from what I hear, we're going to be well into July before this water even starts to drop down, and then kind of see what efforts ongoing they're going to have to do as far as costs for pumps, the other infrastructure, what's it doing with the roads. It's already collapsed a couple of storm sewers that have caused some sinkholes. So, it's going to be a long time, and some effects probably that are going to not necessarily show themselves immediately.
Talking with State Representative Dan Ruby from the Minot area. If you've got questions or comments, 855-200-1776. I was talking with Minot Daily News reporter Kim Fundingsland earlier in the program, and his comments were that he felt that the flooding had come on so strong that officials were almost overtaken by it. I know at the end of May I saw comments from Mayor Zimbel that were prepared for this, and obviously I think we got a lot more than was expected, and not intending to point fingers here, but were you surprised by how quickly this came on?
Well, it's one of those things where I guess if you want to call it the perfect storm or the worst case scenario sort of happened. You know, they had the high melt off from the winter, and of course Canada was melting later than us, so we were still getting theirs. And I was amazed at how much water had come through Minot since April, when it was really first started melting and flowing out of this area, and then what was coming down. And then we started getting those rain events that really added to it. Initially, when we were fighting it before, when people were evacuated, there was a major rain event on the Des Lacs River up in the Kenmare area, and that came down from there, which it meets in Burlington, and with the Souris. And so, that kind of added something that wasn't expected, because that was 3-4 inches. And then last week, Canada got hit really heavy with rain. And then yesterday, I don't know what part of town you were on, but I'd heard first the south part of Minot was getting pounded, and then we're north of town, and pretty soon it was just a torrential downpour. So, that kind of stuff doesn't really help the whole situation, and it's very hard to anticipate that coming and prepare for that. But I imagine they did have to expect that they could get rain. But when they were trying to move out so much water in from up in Canada at Rafferty and Alameda, and then Lake Darling, they've been dropping that all winter. If you remember, there were reports that the river was going to be have a higher flow of water through the winter months, and they were encouraging people to keep the kids off. And of course, 2 young boys got on the river, and one died from drowning on it. So, it's been a situation they've kind of been gearing up for. But you're right. I think to be able to anticipate this level was really hard to do, and probably an unprecedented amount that couldn't be foreseen.
Let me ask you this. I mean, obviously, Canada releasing those waters. I know that there are some treaties and things like that governing, how much water that they could release, at any given time, or even earlier in the year when they were trying to draw down their capacities. Do you know anything? I mean, can you give us any details about that? I mean, what sort of limitations are they under? Obviously, with the rain they got, I don't think they had any choice but to either release or see their dams overtopped. But what sort of things are governing those releases? Well,
I hate to say I'm not really up to speed on what the treaties are dealing with the water and what can be released. It's something we should look into, and maybe work with the Corps and the federal government to work on altering that to give a little bit more leeway for them to be able to make decisions on a case-by-case basis. And certainly it has to be in cooperation with the United States and certainly North Dakota. But one thing about that, whatever they release down the Souris River is going to come back to them as the river flows back up north over by West Hope. So I'm sure they're mindful of that as well, because not only is it what they're releasing, but then as it kind of gets added to from other rain events and areas that happen here in North Dakota, then of course it's going to be right back at them. So, but yeah, I something like that. If we've got some storage, and they should be able to drop down more, so that we can store more water in Lake Darling. I think those kind of agreements and cooperation arrangements should be allowed.
And then that's obviously, I think, a point a lot of people have been asking me. Obviously, other parts of North Dakota worried, where is all this water that's coming down the Souris? Where is that going to end up? Obviously, a matter of concern as the whole state deals with flooding issues. But actually, the interesting thing is the Souris River is very odd in its shape. It actually forms kind of a horseshoe. The bottom of the U is in North Dakota, runs by Minot, and then turns north and actually flows back up into So it's just a very bizarre shape. What, Dan, obviously a lot of our listeners are to the west on our Tioga affiliate, and of course here in the Grand Forks area in the east, eastern part of the state. People who are out of the flooding zone, what would you say is the best thing that they can, help short of getting in a car to come over and help sandbag or something like that? What sort of things could people do to help?
Well, I think right now, as far as the efforts of sandbagging, I know Burlington was, that's in my district, and they were sandbagging through the night to protect their side. I'm not sure if they're still working on that effort. I know their plans were to finish up what they were going to do this morning. So they maybe have gotten that taken care of, but a lot of the dike work right now is pretty much going is through contractors and is large equipment. So there isn't much for volunteers to do there. The main thing that I've heard people, what they're doing is calling and offering use of trailers. I know I've borrowed mine out to several people, and even went down and used some of them to get some people out. We were hauling some sandbags in, but it changed to a different type of fight. From hauling sandbags in, it was more of a, okay, now let's just help everybody get some of the critical stuff out, and especially out of their basements, and maybe just get them up on the main floors if they're kind of on the outlying areas. And so, assistance of storage space, maybe a place to park a camper if they could stay. I've got a few campers that are going to be in my yard tonight, and maybe for a few nights probably, if not longer if needed. And so basically some place to stay, some if you got extra bedrooms, things like that. That's the main assistance I think people are going to need. Certainly some people are going to need help getting their valuables out of the house, but
the window's starting to close on that.
Need a place to stay.
Yeah, and in terms of bringing, trucks or trailers or whatever from out of town, the window's starting to close on that ability. And even right now, the roads are, not all the roads are open in Minot right now, and the roads that are open are certainly very, very crowded right now. Yeah, and that would be something as well, as if you do come to help, don't go on a sightseeing tour. We need as many people off those roads to make room for the people who are, trying to build up dike works and things like that, or trying to move out of the area. We certainly need to stay out of their area. Representative Ruby, thank you so much for coming on the program. We appreciate the update.
Oh, yeah, no problem. Anytime.
That's Representative Dan Ruby. He's from the Minot area. He's a little bit to the west of town, but also involved in the flood fight. Everybody up here doing the best they can. I think his point is that the nature of the fight has changed. This isn't a sandbagging fight right now, unfortunately. I wish it still was. This is more just get the people out of the way type of fight right now. I'm Rob Port, sitting in for the chairman, Scott Hennon. More to come straight ahead on the Scott Hennon Show. Don't go away.